wall. They can't agree on building, the two sides, but boy, can they agree on digging. The hole they're putting us in gets deeper every day. We have the latest developments of what this shutdown means coming up, and we're going to go one-on-one with a Freedom Caucus Republican who's pushing for the righteousness of this showdown. That's first up. Does the president actually get a win here, even with his base? That's our great debate. And he was the last pillar of stability and strength in a chaotic administration. What does the resignation of Defense Secretary James Mattis mean for our fighting men and women? Forget about the politics. Think about them. A veteran is going to tell you exactly what it means. He says there's never been a more important time. What do you say? Let's get after it. All right, I hate to say it, but it is happening. A partial government shutdown is imminent. The House and the Senate are adjourned until tomorrow afternoon-ish. What can that mean? We'll get into it, but let's remember how we got here. Last week, the president said he was, quote, proud to own a shutdown in the name of border security. Now, he's trying to put it back on the Democrats. What changed? Well, I guess he remembered that he's never owned a mistake throughout his presidency. It was the hard right Freedom Caucus that got to him. They pushed the president to take it this far. So let's find out why. Let's bring in Congressman Ted Yoho and let him make the case to you. Welcome to Prime Time. Merry Christmas in advance to you and the family.
Same to you, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Why is this shutdown worth it?
Well, everybody's trying to avoid a shutdown, and our goal is that we pass something over to the Senate. The 217 Republicans pass, and that's with about 17 members gone, so there's plenty of support on the Republican side. This is something that should have been done earlier in the year, March, September, but I can't change that. I can only say that we stood strong with what the American people gave us the majority for a short period of time, and that we delivered that to the president. And we gave it to the Senate.
But you knew that putting the features that you've put in this bill guaranteed a shutdown, not just with the Democrats, but within your own party, there's division about whether or not things like chain migration, as you call it, family reunification, the way the First Lady got her parents into the country. Those are controversial things within your party, which is why you're a caucus, let alone with the Democrats. So you knew a shutdown would happen.
Those are controversial, but those aren't in the bill. What's in the bill is the money for border security, which we all agree on. I don't care what party you are on. We all agree that you have to have border security to have a secure nation. I mean, that's indisputable. And so we put the money in there.
You got offered $25 billion by the Democrats for border security. Remember that deal not too long ago?
Yeah, but that's something they also walked away from too, back when they were negotiating that. This is something that we sent over there. This is something good. It's also got the disaster relief that's so needed for the southeastern states that got hit hard by Hurricane Michael. Just in my state alone, there's over 3 million acres of timber on the ground. $1.3 billion in timber that's going to go to waste, and farmers aren't going to be able to plant their crops for next spring if we don't have disaster relief. And that's something that we have to get in there.
But Democrats,
that's something.
Democrats aren't holding you up over that, Ted. I mean, this is about the wall, and a lot of this has nothing to do with you. I know that your caucus is supportive of the wall, but I really can't make sense of it for the American people. You guys are talking about the same thing. The president calls it a wall.
Sure.
Look, let's be honest. During the campaign, he sold it as something that was going to be new. And of course, there was the whole Mexico's going to pay for it. Let's just remind people.
You know what? I agree.
It's going to be made of hardened concrete, and it's going to be made out of rebar and steel.
It's not a fence. It's a wall. You just misreported it. We're going to build a wall.
Now, we often say you campaign in poetry, but he took it to a new level. This is you campaign in poppycock. It was never going to be a cement wall. That's not what the men and women protecting us on the border ever wanted. They want more of what's there, what they call bollard fencing. I stood in front of it down there recently with the CBP folks who are, working their behinds off trying to keep us all safe. The Democrats say they'll fund it. They have funded it in the past. You guys are talking about the same thing. How come you can't get it done?
We are, and as you know, Chris, I mean, you've been around, and your job is to educate the American people. There is a wall up there already. There's wall construction going on now.
Right now.
And in different parts of the country. And where Custom Border Patrol or ICE says we need a wall is where we need a wall.
Right.
And I've always said I don't think we need a wall from sea to shining sea, and I will not support that. But I will support where the experts say we need this for border security.
And the Democrats agree with you.
Well, they agree in words, but they don't agree in action.
$25 billion,
wait a minute.
Ted.
Well, yeah, but they walked away from that, and then
But they walked away
also
from it because
talk
of the
about-
add-ons that Mark Meadows was writing about putting in this bill now. Family reunification and all those other things about legal immigration.
Those didn't get in there. It was a little over $5 billion for the wall, and then right at a little over almost $8 billion for hurricane disaster relief. And if you remember, President Obama had portions of a wall built.
Sure.
George Bush, Bill Clinton.
Yes.
But the left today, the Democrats want to say this is Trump's wall, and so
Yes.
they're against anything that says Trump. This is not Trump's wall. This is America's wall. This is an American wall for American national security. And that's something that you in the media have a responsibility to get this out and get the partisan politics out of this.
Look, I literally just went down there and stood in front of it and said,
Exactly, and you
CBP is
saw it.
right. We need this. I've been down there lots of time. Lots of journalists have. But
You have, and you've done a great job.
But here's what I can't explain to the American people. The impasse. Because you're going to have a shutdown that is supposedly done to help the men and women who are keeping us safe on the border. But 54,000 of them, at least at CBP, are going to have to work without pay because of the shutdown. So you say you're doing this to help them, but you're going to punish them.
Wait a minute. Let's get the facts right. You're saying they're working without pay. They get paid bi-monthly, which is probably the 1st and close to the 15th. So nobody's missed a paycheck yet. But there's this narrative out. These people are working without a... if it goes past January 2nd, because January 1st is a holiday. So if it goes beyond that, we can have this discussion. But right now, nobody's not getting paid. This is something that's going to be fixed within, I would say, within 72 to 96 hours.
I hope
and
so.
the government
I hope you're right.
will go on. I think you'll see that happen. And then let's focus on what really is impacting this country. It's our debt. Our education system needs to change. Our scores are dropping around the world. And then you've got the ever-present, what's going on in the Middle East, North Korea, and then China, and don't forget, Russia is now in the Western Hemisphere. They're not calling them military bases off the coast of Venezuela, but they're in the Western Hemisphere. This is something this nation under John Kennedy almost went to war with the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is something we need to take our focus off these. I don't want to call them petty fights because they're serious fights, but we need to focus on those things that this nation is facing, and these are serious threats to all of our nation, and it transcends party politics.
Well, look, I like the last part of the sentence, right? Because there is so much that transcends party politics, and that's why we keep pushing you men and women. Maybe the Christmas spirit will make a little bit of a difference, or maybe you'll see you can't rely on the president. I don't mean it as a criticism. I mean it as an observation. You guys have to do the job for yourselves and then see him as his proper role, which is not directing legislation. It's to sign it or not sign it. Let me ask you about something else, though, in terms of how the president complicates the process. This report out that the president finds out about the Cohen charges, right? He doesn't like it. Understandable. What's not understandable is that he goes to his guy, Whitaker, and says, I'm really mad at you. How could you let these guys have these charges come down at me? Isn't that concerning to you that the president of the United States goes to the acting AG and says, I don't like these charges?
Well, I'm not in his shoes, but I wouldn't like those charges against me. And so, we hear what he says, but look at what he's done already with the Mueller investigation. He's let that go on, and that's something I personally feel should go away. I mean, that's something that should never have started.
You think that the president should stop the Mueller probe?
No, I didn't say that.
I know
personally
you didn't.
think
And there's a reason,
go away.
Ted, because you know that would be dynamite politically. If a president were to stop a probe he's involved in?
No, I agree with that, and that's not what I said. But I personally think it should never have started because it started under false pretenses with the FISA warrant that should never have been signed, and you know that.
I do not know that.
Well, when you look at the first FISA warrant that got signed because of the Steele dossier, that was
only
all concocted.
In part. And look, you don't know it either, Ted, because you haven't seen the FISA
only in part, so that means part. Well, I've read enough of it. I read the intelligence briefings on it that I can't go into, but only in part. So, I mean, it's garbage. It should never have started.
Right, but the reason it started was because of Rod Rosenstein believing that there was a conflict, and he needed to have this done in a way that could be preserved. Rod Rosenstein, the guy they brought in to submarine Jim Comey. So they liked him plenty then.
Yeah, but Rod Rosenstein was the guy that signed the last FISA warrant, and he knew at that time that it was concocted. And so,
he has
I don't
never
want to get into that
concocted.
But we know he
because
signed
now
that.
you have the president yelling at the acting AG, who's his guy, and I can't believe you think that's an appropriate thing for a president to do.
I'm not in his shoes. I don't have the facts around me.
No, but
that
you have
he does.
oversight. You were elected. You raised your right hand. People put you in there to fight for them. Should the president call the acting AG and say, I don't like this, it's bad for me?
I'm not going to weigh in on that, but should
Come on, Ted, it's almost Christmas. Give me a gift.
Should President Clinton get on with the acting AG on an investigation that he's doing against the president's wife?
Nope.
Nope.
It was really wrong when the former president had that
really
weird
bad.
meeting at the plane. It was
See,
wrong.
I know this is right. This is good. We're agreeing. It's Christmas.
Yeah,
time.
except I don't care about presidents past. I worry about the man who's in there right now, and we have unprecedented presidential interruption.
There's 2 years of investigations going on, millions of dollars, a lot of time that we've spent up here. There has been no Russian collusion, and here we are. Well, 2 years into it, I know that. So
16 guys around the president lied about contacts with Russians. Why'd they do that? Why'd they lie?
So did James Comey. So did Stork.
About contacts with Russians?
No, but about other things, about the Steele dossier.
I lied to my kid about what the going rate is for teeth from the tooth fairy. It doesn't have anything to do with the Mueller probe.
Yeah, well, some those are okay. I'll let you deal with that and your child and God. But again, we can focus on this stuff, but look at where our country is. Look at the threats that we're really facing. You've got China building weapons that we can't defend against, their hypersonic weapons. You've got China with their espionage. You've got Russia in our Western Hemisphere. You've got Russia backing out of the INF. Not backing out of it. They haven't been compliant with it.
Right.
And these are serious threats that threaten all Americans and the security we have in this nation. And so, yes, these other things are important. Let the committees do what they're supposed to do.
And his disruptiveness
but 2 years ago, he was
part
here,
of the reason the market's
and
tanking
it was still
right now.
doing bad.
Yeah, but right now,
markets go up and markets go down.
But
it will adjust.
But
and
when
it'll
you
be
do
better.
what he's done with trade, and when you create uncertainty the way he does, the markets respond negatively.
What do you want them to do with trade? Just ignore China and let them keep?
My job is to test what he does.
Billion?
Your job is to help shape what he does.
And you know what? I appreciate what you do. But if you look at China, $367 billion trade deficit to their favor, $600 billion in intellectual property theft, and then the espionage and the theft of military-grade secrets.
Right, nobody's arguing that China isn't a malefactor on different levels. It's how you address it and what you do with it.
If President Trump or a president doesn't stand up at this point in time in our nation, when are you going to do it? You're going to wait for another 4 years? Or,
I understand the timing. It's about the tactics and the plan.
So I'm proud
and that's
of what
we need
he's
to
doing.
See. Tactics and plan matter too, and we'll see what it is, Ted. We'll see what he lays out.
You and I agree on that. Your tactics and mine might be a little bit different in his.
I don't know. I don't know.
He's a very successful person in what he has done, and so I still rely on that. His I guess just business acumen that he has.
All right, there you and I disagree. I cannot make a compelling case that the president was a great businessman in his former life. A great salesman, yes. Running businesses, I can't make that case.
That's part of politics.
Well, he's great at that. Ted Yoho, thank you so much. The best
Merry
for Christmas to you and your family. I appreciate you being on Prime Time. We'll have you back soon.
You have a great night.
All right. All right, so, look, you can debate about which way it goes and what other things should be happening, whether it's big enough or not, whatever. Is it going to happen tonight? It seems as though it is a partial shutdown. We have a great team of reporters up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. There's a lot of yip-yapping going on behind the scenes. Will any of it make a difference? Next. Any chance it doesn't? If it does, how long does it go? We got CNN's Phil Mattingly and Caitlin Collins joining us with the latest. Thanks to both of you for doing this late here. Phil, is there any magic left in this moment?
Certainly not tonight. I think the bigger question now is not will there be a shutdown, that's guaranteed. It's how long is it's going to go. And Chris, in talking to people that have been directly involved in these negotiations over the course of the last couple of hours, the word I'm getting right now is pack a lunch. It's going to take a little while for them to get there. And the reason why is twofold. Basically, there's two key players here that everybody needs to keep a close eye on. There's President Trump, who made clear $5 billion was his threshold for the wall. He's going to have to come off of that. Is he willing to do that? And perhaps more importantly, do Republicans trust, after he appeared to do about face earlier in the week, that whatever his team says he will agree to, he will agree to in the end? And the other is Speaker-to-be Nancy Pelosi. Her level has been from the very beginning $1.3 billion in border security. None of that money can be used for the wall. Would she be willing to move off that, even a couple $100,000, maybe a couple $1 million? Those two questions right now remain unanswered, and those two central points are the gulf that divides these two sides right now, a division that, at least as far far as I'm being told, at these early stages, on the brink of a shutdown, one we know is going to happen, has not been bridged up to this point, Chris.
Remember when the Democrats had $25 billion on the table in exchange for a DACA deal? Boy, that seems like a lifetime ago. All right, so Caitlin, Ted Yoho, Florida Freedom Caucus congressman, was just on. He says 48, 72 hours. We'll get this figured out. Nobody's going to get hurt. You hearing that?
That's what White House officials are hoping. They have realized this shutdown is coming in just a matter of 2 hours and 41 minutes, and however many seconds are ticking down. Now they want to figure out how to blunt this, to make it as short as possible, because they know if it lasts just a few days, they can message it properly. But if it goes on, that's going to become a problem for the White House, and it's going to be bad optics, and they're fully aware of this. But Phil makes the right point there. A lot of this all comes down to President Trump, because he can send the vice president, his incoming chief of staff, and even his son-in-law and senior advisor up to Capitol Hill for 5 hours, as they did here tonight. But the question in the end is, does the president agree with what they're on board with? Because that is what Republicans have been waiting to hear, essentially to have the president articulate what it is exactly he wants. And they didn't feel like they got that today. The other thing is that President Trump is hearing this criticism from people that he's backpedaling on his signature campaign promise, building a wall, and they feel like this is the last time to get those funds. And you hear from people like Ted Yoho and other people who are going after the president, saying, don't back down from this fight, continue to dig in. So that is the messaging that the president has right now, Chris.
Complicated. Phil, Caitlin, thank you so much. Good luck to both of you getting the answers on this one. All right, so Trump told Democrats to their face, actually to your face as well. Remember, it was on live TV. I'll carry the mantle. The shutdown is on me. Now he wants to say it's all their fault. Who's going to get the blame if Uncle Sam goes broke? Who wins here? Great debate. Next.
Obamacare was not very popular with the American people. It lost Ted Kennedy's seat up in Massachusetts. Nevertheless, Obama stayed focused. He stayed the course because he paid attention to his base. I'm going to shock you here, but I actually applaud the president for doing that and wish that the President Trump had done so sooner. I don't think there's anything wrong with the president of the United States, whose #1 responsibility is national security and protecting the American people and our sovereignty, to shut down the government over this.
All right, but hold on. First of all, it wasn't just the base that wanted health care reform when Obama came in. But I'll tell you what, Bakari, I think Niger's point is even stronger than he's making it. Because the Democrats know that there is no new wall. This is about building more bollard fencing, which was there several years ago and we need more of. And the Democrats acknowledge that. That's why they put $25 billion on the table not too long ago. Why get caught up in the wordplay? Why not just fund border security?
Well, I have to complete your sentence, because they put $25 billion up, but that was in exchange for a DACA program that actually worked and gave them a pathway to citizenship.
Right.
What we're looking at now is simply a red herring. This wall is it's a $5 billion red herring. There are a few things. Why are we paying for this wall when the President of the United States and everyone else were going on the campaign trail and chanting build the wall, and who's going to pay for it? Mexico. Why can't Niger and every other Republican that come up before you simply say that was a lie? The president lied about that. That is coming out of your pocket, the American people.
Hold on. Let's get an answer to your question. Mexico paying for it. It was BS. It was always BS, and you know it. Niger, yes or yes?
No, I don't think it was BS. I think the president had intended, as a candidate, to leverage.
First time he went down there to Mexico to talk about it, he wouldn't mention a word about it, and the Mexican president said, better not bring up that wall, because I'm not paying for it.
That was diplomacy. But regardless of Mexico paying for it or not, the president is doing the right thing. The president is doing the right thing here, and he's also doing the right thing about something that is not really discussed that is critical to reducing illegal immigration, and it's on the asylum question. They just cut a deal with Mexico where asylum seekers, we know about the caravans, we know about the rush of those who are trying to seek asylum in the country, they will remain in Mexico and housed and even potentially given jobs in Mexico while they await proper procedure to see if those asylum claims are legitimate or not. That is a major change and a major victory for the Trump administration.
Bakari.
Well, that's why I also say this is a red herring, because what we need in this country is comprehensive immigration reform. I mean, part of the thing that the Republicans don't want to talk about are when are we going to make sure that we enforce our immigration laws against these large employers that are hiring illegal immigrants? Why is the emphasis not on these businesses? But to go just a step further, not the Mexico talking point is very sensationalized, but to talk about this issue of the budget and where we are today, Congressman Yoho was absolutely false and incorrect. These government employees are working for free. No one gets a check prior to them doing work. You work those hours and then you get paid for those 2 weeks. So yes, those Border Patrol agents that you saw, those ones that we need to fund, we need to pay more, and we actually need more Border Patrol agents, they will be working for free. The irony of this whole thing
goes past their payment date. I get what I get what you're saying, but they still have a problem.
Yeah, that also, you still have a problem. And my only point is that this is stupid. And what happens is you have a president in Ann Coulter, you have a president in Rush Limbaugh, and this is why the president's word is not worth anything, because he made a deal with Mitch McConnell. He made a deal that he was going to sign it, and then he listens to Bill O'Reilly, Rush Limbaugh, and Ann Coulter, and all of a sudden the government shuts down. This is the third government shutdown, and you have the majority in the House, the Senate, and the White House. You cannot run government. You do not deserve the office if you cannot run government and you have 3 shutdowns. That is the talking point that's not being said.
What he listened to is he looked at his own platform and realized that one of the most important issues that got him the Republican nomination over 16 other well-qualified candidates, that got him a large electoral college victory over Hillary Clinton in the general election, and that was doing something about illegal immigration. He's starting to do so right now. That deal that was cut with Mexico to fundamentally change asylum crisis at the border,
that deal's not
dealing
done.
with the wall question, and forcing the Democrats' hand is the right thing to do.
That
My
deal's
only
not
problem
done.
is that he waited a little late to do it.
The deal's not done, and something else. We're dealing with something that is symptomatic in the shutdown of a larger problem. He can't get deals done. He sold himself as a deal maker. It was a farce, because he's trying to do things on his own because he can't get deals done. That's why the Supreme Court, packed with conservative justices, just had to cut him down and say you can't change asylum law on your own. Stop trying. Go make a deal.
What they did is they promoted judicial power over the executive branch. It had I think it had more to do. Well, Justice Roberts, who weighed in with the 4 other liberals, and he's not a liberal, but he's certainly not rock-rib conservative with some of his announcements.
Oh, boy, are you kidding me?
Judicial
He was the
power
golden
more
boy for
over
you
the
guys.
executive branch power.
But this takes the immigration. If we're going to change our immigration system in this country, it takes a bipartisan, comprehensive 100%. Approach. You cannot.
Oh, you mean like DACA and President Obama's executive order, Bakari?
You cannot
like DACA and DAPA?
Yes, yes. You need that to be a part of your comprehensive program. Yes, scream it louder
President
so that
Obama
people on your side
used an executive order to change immigration laws.
During that, you also
that had nothing to do with national security.
You're correct. But during that time, you had 8 individual senators.
Me being correct means I'm correct.
Who put forward a comprehensive immigration plan, only to be ostracized by the far right of the party. And what I'm simply saying here is there are people like you, right, and other Republicans. They're the same people who believe that someone who had multiple bankruptcies is a good businessman, like the congressman said earlier. There are people like you who believe that building a wall is going to solve our immigration problem, and better yet, Mexico is going to pay for it. What I'm trying to say, and I think what Chris is getting down to, is that we need real leaders with real solutions, and I'm tired of playing games, because right now you're shutting down the government, and 800,000 people at Christmas have uncertainty. No one can tell you when this is going to be over. 800,000 people at Christmas who work for you and I, who do the hard work every single day. And you want to come up here and spin yourself in the pretzels,
75% of the government is still funded. That's number one.
What
number
about those 800,000 people?
I believe the Senate just passed a resolution saying that government employees can get paid. The House is probably going to vote on it tomorrow morning. But look, if I have a choice of a president that is going to focus on national...
Why inject the risk?
I'm sorry?
Why inject the risk? You didn't need to do any of this.
Because the president, and like I said before, I'm critiquing him. I think he should have done this like
but this isn't the ACA.
said, back in September or in March, certainly after the election. But
this
a
isn't the
president using his
ACA.
executive power to protect the people of the United States, as opposed to a president like Obama who used his executive power for DAPA and DACA.
Listen, Niger, you would be right if right now there was absolutely no barrier anywhere on the southern border. Then you would be correct, because the president would be saying, I need to build something, there's nothing there. There is something there. In fact, what is there is exactly what he said he was going to build anew. So it was always a farce. This is about
in some places, yes,
not something new.
Chris, you're right. In some places, there is border fencing, there are border security that is working very effectively. But you've been down to the border. You've talked to the border enforcement, and they said we need more resources.
Right.
We need a wall.
And then you know what they do?
I follow them.
And then you know what they do? They immediately throw in a comma. Right. So you want to help the CBP, but you're going to shut down the government, and they're not going to get paid.
Shut them down.
And they all say the same thing.
We need barriers.
They say we need barriers, but you guys cannot forget this part of the conversation. It is not a panacea. We are not a wall away from fixing the problems, and they have bigger concerns than the barriers.
Absolutely.
And nobody's touching them, and that's something we need work on. I got to go. Bakari, Niger, God bless you both for making my show better.
Merry
Best
Christmas
for Christmas to your families. I appreciate it all. The shutdown is not the only crisis, okay? Pulling out of Syria sent General Mattis packing, and now the fighting men and women, the people we say we care so much about, they don't know who has their back in the White House. A veteran is here to discuss being used and abused by D.C. Next.
It was a beautiful holiday night.
Time and in this way. But what does all this mean for the troops? Let's get some perspective from Paul Rykov, founder and CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. My brother, the best to you and the family for Christmas.
Thank you. Back at you, man. Good
Thank
to see
you for everything you do.
Thank you.
So we lost sight of ourselves. We're thinking politics, politics, politics. No. Let's put up the picture of the four generals that were once there, because this gave comfort. Flynn, McMaster, say whatever you want about them now, but Kelly, Mattis. Now they're all gone. The fighting men and women, whom do they feel has their back? And I know they're not a monolith, but I'm saying, what are your concerns? What is the level of popped eyebrows over Mattis being gone?
This is a big deal. This is on a higher level than anything else. I mean, Mattis is revered in the military community. He is the most popular leader I've seen in our time in the military. There are shrines to General Mattis in the barracks of Marines and in the battlefield. He had, I think, an 84% approval rating in the active duty, 90% among the officers. He is on another level. People are very, very nervous. They feel uneasy. Mattis is a guy who has our back. From the grunt all the way up to the general, people had faith, and they trusted Mattis infinitely.
So him leaving hurts. The context bothers you just as much. When you heard about the Syria pullout, whether it was the timing or the politics, but you're generally a pretty even guy. You do not feel even about this.
No, this is a very important moment, a very fragile moment in our country's history. We've never had a Secretary of Defense resign in protest.
Right.
In protest. I mean, what he said to the president is, you're not listening to me. That's what he basically said. And for the Secretary of Defense, who is also a retired general, to say that to the president means that the president's not listening to the troops. And that puts them in a very precarious position right now. People are just getting off planes and they're finding out, and people are really, really hit in the gut because Mattis is not there to have our back. That's why Trump picked him, because he knew how popular he was. He knew how revered he was. And now he's going to pay a huge price, and I think America's going to pay a price.
Guy who was so popular that even with a nickname like Mad Dog, he was too serious to even let people call him that. That's how much integrity he had. So, now this is a tricky one for the ordinary civilian, because we hear, bring them home. That's good. We want you home. We don't want our men and women out there on these missions that are called advise and assist, and we know that's a lie. You know, we don't want you exposed to it. But then we hear something like what Lindsey Graham said. Let's play what his concern is.
Based on my assessment in Afghanistan, if we withdrew anytime soon, you'd be paving the way for a second 9/11.
Now, that's a scary phrase for him to bring up. So how do you balance the we want our people home with the risk of leaving?
I think that's the job of the president every single day. And what you want him to do is be even. You want him to be thoughtful. You want him to listen to military advisors. And I think you have to look at the larger context of the last 2 years. The military has been getting jerked around every day, from the sprinting of troops down to the border, to the trans ban, to the parade, to NATO. You know, Mattis was blocking all that. Mattis was keeping us protected from all the politics. And with Mattis gone, we don't know what's going to happen. We need someone to be an even hand on America's guns, on America's military. When a cabinet level secretary resigns and all the turnover we've seen, that's one thing. But this is the Department of Defense. This is the Department of War. This is different. This is like the gun cabinet in the House. The rest of the House is getting wrecked, but there's been a Rottweiler in front of the gun cabinet, right? And now that Rottweiler's gone. So no one knows what's going to happen, and that's why this is such an important moment, not just for our military, but for our country and for the world.
So a buddy of mine who I grew up with, who's been in and out of theater over there, he called me last night and said, remember what the problem is. You think, civilian, we'll come home. If it's really that bad, we'll go back. He's been in Iraq. He was in Afghanistan. I mean, you know the situations over there from your own experience. He says it's not how it works, Chris. If we have to leave, it is so much worse when we go back that it's like we were never there. Is that true? Is it that?
Sometimes. I mean, it's not that simple. I think the part is you want to have a thoughtful process. You want to have a deliberate process. You want to listen to the troops on the ground. And this is a president who said he was going to listen to his generals. Well, he's not listening to these generals. He made a very big political, a populist argument.
He says he knows better than the generals.
Well, he made a populist argument that the generals were his generals. They were going to be on his side. It was part of why you should vote for him, right? And now he's not listening to the most revered general of our time. So, you know, we're looking to see what Mattis says afterward. Is he going to stay there all the way till February? That would be surprising, I think, to most of us. But when he comes out, he may be the most important voice in the world in trying to talk to our allies, to try to talk to other militaries, and to talk to the American people.
What does it mean to you that the president says, not joking around, I know better than these guys? And the Pentagon, the other generals around, he doesn't listen to them.
Yeah.
To somebody who, you know, fought the wars yourself and knows the men and women who are there now, what's the implication of that?
It's laughable. I mean, arrogance in combat is a very dangerous thing. And especially when you're arrogant about the other people's lives, right? These are America's sons and daughters. There's nothing more sacred than the responsibility the commander-in-chief has to be thoughtful in when and how he sends those men and women into harm's way. They want someone who understands their situation and listens to the people they trust. And there's nobody they trust more than Mattis. So this is really, you know, I got so many direct messages, tweets, texts that people really feel, you know, uneasy. And these are the people who are holding the line. These are the people who defend our shores, who are in our bridges and tunnels. This was their leader. So they're going to need answers quickly.
Now, help the audience that's on the left side of this issue understand the politics. Because, you know, well, Biden wanted to do this. Biden wanted to pull out of Syria. Obama was in no rush to get into Syria with his whole red line thing. You know, the red line couldn't be read enough. No matter what they did, he wouldn't say they crossed it. So isn't this a good thing? Isn't the president just doing what the left wants?
Again, what Mattis is saying is you can't just rip out of there and leave people hanging, right? We've got allies that were expecting us to be there, and tomorrow we're gone. You're in the middle of a fist fight with your buddy standing next to you, and you say, bye, I'm gone. You've left him in that fist fight alone, and sometimes outnumbered. That's what we're doing to our allies. When you yank out of there without giving them any advance notice, without doing any diplomacy, giving our military leaders time to socialize that decision, you're leaving your allies hanging. You're also endangering the opportunity for future allies to stand up. If America leaves our allies on the battlefield, other allies aren't going to step up. And that's going to reverberate for generations. That's the cost here.
You get burned once, there's no second time.
That's it.
That's why if I need backup, I come for you.
You got it, man. I got
PJ, thank you very much.
Brother.
Best for Christmas.
Thank you.
Let us
Merry
know how
Christmas.
we can help the cause always.
Thank you always.
All right.
Appreciate it.
So, did you hear? Trump's wall, the president saying, I'm going to build the wall, it's no longer a wall. He's proposing something else. It's like some kind of Jedi mind trick that's going on with the Democrats, except it isn't. It's child's play. It's obvious, and it's BS, and I'm going to take you through it next. In a wall, and it is such a deception. Steel slats, walls, are they interchangeable? The president just tweeted this. A design of our steel slat barrier, which is totally effective while at the same time beautiful. But in the past, he had said concrete. Remember that? Rebar, concrete, Mexico's going to pay for it. It was all BS. It was never going to happen. You know the idea, we campaign in poetry? This is campaign in poppycock. Now he's trying to switch it. Listen, I was down there. Show him the pictures. This is called a bollard fence, all right? This is what has been there. This is what they need more of. This is all that will be, and it is enough for the men in CBP and the women down there. This is what they want. Let's bring in D. Lemon. This is the frustrating part for me. This is a war of words. That's what they're building down there. That's what they want. That's all they'll ever build down there. There will be nothing else.
Yeah. So caveat is, we need border security.
Yes.
Okay, but here's the real thing. It's a farce. Are they going to start? They're going to be. What are they going to redesign airplanes so that people who fly over here from European countries or other countries who overstay their visas, which is the biggest immigration issue that we have, illegal immigration. That's the biggest one. So are they going to start changing that? Or are they going to simply tell people that it is a political tactic to get you riled up so you can become upset about what happens on the southern border? There are ways to deal with the southern border. You don't have to build a Game of Thrones structure, or at least who would build that, by the way? But that sort of you don't have to put that out there to make people think like, oh, we can do this and they'll do it. There are shovels. You know what I mean by that? If you have a wall, people will shovel under the wall. Right. You've seen the tunnels. You've been there, right? You've covered it, right? And if you have a wall, you build a 30-foot wall, people are going to build. Now, it doesn't mean that there should not be some sort of structure there as they have the fences, the ballard fences. It doesn't mean that that should not be there. Every ounce of prevention, I think, is good. But to have our government hinge on something that is just a political promise and tactic, it is ridiculous.
I agree.
And they should be called out for it, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
100%. And the motivation behind it is clear. If you put back up Trump's tweet, he emphasized something in that fence. He emphasizes the top, the spikes.
Yeah, that's what I said, the Game of Thrones.
Now, let me tell you something. I talked to some people who are doing the job of protecting us. They are appalled by that. One, it's not the design that they want. And you know why they don't want it? They say our goal is deterrence.
Not killing
not
people.
Cruelty. That's not what we want to do. That's not what we're about.
There you go.
The president needs to understand that. This is what he wants. He wants the message of cruelty. That's why they separated the kids the way they did. That's why they lied about it. They like that message, Don, and that's the danger.
It's a theater of the absurd, and we should be a humane country, meaning we shouldn't be trying to kill people if they get over a wall or stab them to death, and we should not be separating parents from their children. So there you go. People, you're being played. This is all a farce. He is upset because it's a campaign promise. There are ways to protect the border, including structures. But to build a wall, listen, if you want to build a wall, that's fine. But to have the government being open or closed, people's livelihoods depending on something that you made as a political promise, I think it's just ridiculous. And again, you should be ashamed of yourself.
That is a perfect statement. In fact, I'm going to use it as a building block for my closing. We're like Nolte and Murphy.
Yeah. So you owe me dinner.
No.
Yes, I'm going till 1 at least.
I think that's going to change.
Okay.
It's not over yet. At 12:01, I owe your mother dinner. You can sit and watch.
I'll let you have it.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
All right. You heard Don. He's making a very strong point that this is a function of make-believe. Now, the president insists the wall matters so much, but you just heard, well, what about airplanes? Over 50% of the people come. Most of the drugs come through legit port of entries in containers, tunnels underneath. It's not a panacea. But he might want to listen to those around him who are making a very different argument, and you may want to listen to the one that I make, our last of the year. Next.